Fire escape engineers inspector summary video. We're here in Springfield, Illinois, and this fire escape building's around 1925. This fire escape is 75 plus years old. All original hardware. What we're finding here is all these bolts are original square heads. A lot of rust build up on this fire escape. As you can see, all this needs to be cleaned out. And 100% of all the treads and some of the rails have all been cleaned, rebolted, but none of the treads were cleaned of rust. So every one of these treads needs to be rebolted again. All the rust needs to be removed, and then the treads returned to their position after the area has been cleaned. So the law is very simple. It requires the following. Load test a fire escape if it's in pristine condition. And that load test is basically putting a load on these platforms, a load on these treads, and a load on that other platform, and you repeat the process all the way down. It's 100 pounds per square foot, so that's a platform over there of 4x3. So you would put 1,200 pounds on that platform for a period of 30 minutes and take measurements. You would do that to this platform, and so on and so forth. You take about 1,000 pounds on these treads and you load test for that for 30 minutes. So that's the only way to guarantee that all these old bolts, if this fire escape was in a pristine condition, that's the only way I can guarantee that this square head bolt is gonna pass an inspection. It's called a load test, a live load test. The alternative to a live load test of the 100% of the fire escape is to change all the bolts on certain components, such as the staircases, like they did here, but they did it wrong. But let's say this was a clean repair and there was no rust in the connections and it was rebolted. Now I only have to do that platform, this platform. So it's load test everything that's old, but anything that's been refurbished, do not load test it, because you have all brand new bolts and it's been cleaned. That's to the industry standard. The final way to avoid a load test is 100% of all the connections that are old, 50, 75, 100 years old. So every one of these square head bolts is going to be switched out now to a new bolt. The area is going to be cleaned and rebolted and sealed with silicone. So once you start cleaning out every old bolt, every clip, every connection gets the bolt popped out, the rivets popped out, and then you rebolt it on all the major connections, not all the minor connections, all the major platform structures, supports, all the treads, all the posting on the rails. Once you change out every single bolt, it's called a refurbishment, then there's no need for a load test. And on average, the load test criteria for a refurbished fire escape is, on average, is every 25 years the load test question will be brought up. All right, so let's go down slowly. We're going to see some of the issues. Rust is building up on all these clips. Okay, got to be changed out. See how the guy changed the bolts, but he didn't change the rust behind it? These treads, look at all the rust inside. Look at all the rust inside. There's better ones coming down that show all the rust. Look at all the rust that stayed in there. They changed the bolts, new stainless steels, but they left all the rust inside. So every one of these is compromised and has to be cleaned. Take the tread out, clean that area, prime the area, put it back, silicone shut it with new bolts. Let's talk about everything back into the building. These are all through rust jacking or ice jacking, all the connections back into the building. I strongly recommend here that we put an angle that ties these three bars back together, and then use an angle to basically tie these back in. This is all needs to be cleaned and then sealed so water doesn't get back in there, and all the bolts, obviously, of all the posting, corner posting. I'm a little concerned about these corners because they're old, so we have to determine whether or not we want to put a cross brace here and put a bolt, because a lot of times these things are rotted out and these things are tubular, so there's gonna have to be some testing on that to make sure. Let's go down. We're gonna see just what occurs on the cement side that needs to be done, but I need to go down one, or maybe here. Water has been getting into this building. All this gets to get repacked. All that underneath there. I need a new epoxy bolt. Either verify that connection by drilling it out, or having a mason open up that whole area, or 5 inches away, put an epoxy bolt and basically nullify the need for me to verify that connection either through load testing. I can duplicate a connection and now I don't need to load test. I can also unify the connections by running a piece of angle, 3x3, underneath here and extending about 5 to 8 inches, extending 5 to 8 inches out that way, And basically on here, I'm gonna fit about 3 to 4 epoxy bolts. And where they touch underneath, you mechanically fasten that. So now I've basically eliminated the need to verify the connections. You still have to repack 100% of all the cement, but now that you've nullified the need for a load test through what's called duplication. Again, re-cementing. Again, this is great. Look, the bolt is still, the head is there, but there's no shaft. This is typical. Here's a typical, there's the nut and the bolt, there's the head, right there, nothing in between. So, just standard, she's years old, she's 75 plus years old. Every one of these major connections need to be rebolted. Every one of the minor connections, if they're in good condition, they can stay minor connections only. Again, 100% of all the treads need to be rebolted, taken out, cleaned, put back. Good opportunity to dip these treads. Got a lot of water damage getting into this building. And these dragon tears, these rusty tears coming down is an indication that water keeps getting in there year after year. Duplicate all the connections or verify every connection into the building. Duplication is going to be much cheaper. Epoxy bolts, by the way, the epoxy bolts that are going to be up there can only happen in the spring, probably April, May, June. They need a good weather, night and day, 60 to 80 degrees, consistent. Here's one of the staircases that's, and they reinforced it here. Instead of changing out this clip, this is what's happening with the clip. This clip is gone now, and it ate already my angle up here. My clip got eaten, and that's what the clip looks like. It's a wraparound. It's a piece of angle, and then they heat it and wrapped. It's called a shoe. This is what happens when you let the shoe rot. It just eats both sides, and then it finally falls away. They have a temporary band-aid here for it. All right, let's go down. A bulge in the gratings. Now it just starts repeating itself all the way down. Cement situations. Cement. High backs, gratings. Just all original hardware on this Farscape. 100% refurbishment of every connection. That's a major connection. All minor connections. There's only going to be a few on this, but most likely it's going to be a 100% refurbishment of all connections. And I'll talk to you about what that means in a second. As far as on the support, a lot of these were wedged with wood, and it was that wood that started doing a lot of the spalling that basically pushed everything out. After a while, that wood, when you pack it with cement on the outside, it looks great for a few years, and then it just pops, and that wood stays wet year after year. This Farscape is presumed to have lead. It's older than 1978, so EPA rules apply. He must be a licensed renovator. Look at this. Look how much rust is eating this, eating the shoe, eating the clip, and it's going to do what the one up there. This is eventually going to eat through here and pop. Look how much rust is there. So every one of these shoes need to be, you got to come in here and cut all these rivets out, and then either make a new shoe or use the existing shoe if it still has enough material left on it. Got a silicone shut after you clean 100% of the treads. Let me show you a couple things here. And again, everybody's going to come out on these. So these gratings are all 1/2-inch bar, standard. But on these supports, the next thing that's needed on here is this connection right here. See this connection right here? That's a single bolt. This support is basically part of the triangle arm, and that bolt is 75 years old. We're either going to change these all out, or if they're in good excellent condition, which this one seems, I need a gusset plate put in here. And that gusset plate is going to pick up 2 bolts here and going to pick up 2 bolts here. And basically we've reinforced that connection. As soon as we do that, plus the tie backs into the building with the epoxy bolts, the Hilti epoxy bolts back into the building, we basically nullify the need for this connection to be load tested, because we refurbished the entire structure, and the tie back in, which is an unknown, gets nullified by us doing an epoxy connection back into the building. All right, let's continue going down. After a while, this repeats itself and over again, and I'm gonna probably end it here and pick it up down there, because you do go to a platform down below. That platform is only about 4 to 6 inches off the grade. We probably need to elevate that to 12 inches off grade, And because as it sits in the snow year after year, it's rotting out that whole entire catwalk system that goes to that gate. So I'm going to pick up my inspection from down there. And repeating, 100% of the treads need rebolting. 100% of the platforms need rebolting. 100% of the supports need rebolting. 100% of the supports need to be re-hilted back into the building to nullify the need to verify these connections back into the wall, or view through a load test is the only way I can verify these. And the thing about a load test is that it's done every 5 years. So you have to load test it today, and 5 years from today I need a load test again. But as soon as you epoxy it back into the building, the average cycle, again, and this is based with the fire official, the average cycle is 25 years if the engineer performs some pull tests on some of these bolts that are sticking out of the building to verify that everything is good. So we're going to end it here. It just repeats itself over and over and over again, and I'll pick it up from that part that goes into the parking lot down there.